He said it loudly, in front of the kids, as if pain were the only language they deserved to understand. The training hall didn't try to be pretty. The floor was scuffed where shoes had dragged and bare feet had pivoted too late. The air carried sweat, rubber, and the sour breath of old mats that had absorbed years of effort. Through a dusty row of windows, daylight poured in hard and flat, turning every corner sharp, every flaw honest. From the next room came the dull, constant thud of fists on heavy bags, an industrial heartbeat that never quite let you forget what this place was built for. A handful of children stood in loose lines, different ages, different bodies, all slightly out of sync. Their hands rose and fell like they were borrowing courage from the air. Some punches snapped, others floated, uncertain, like questions. But their eyes kept returning to Bruce with the kind of trust that makes an adult's mistakes heavier. Bruce kept his voice low, precise. He didn't bark, he didn't rush them. He set the tempo with small corrections. Turn a heel, soften a shoulder, breathe before you move. He was teaching them ownership, not aggression. Metal struck metal. The door banged open against the frame, loud enough to make a few heads jerk. A man stepped in and took the space the way a large object takes a room, by changing the weight of the air. He was a boxer, thick through the chest, arms wrapped, knuckles hidden under layers of tape that smelled of liniment and dried sweat. His gait was casual only on the surface. Every movement carried a quiet dare. He looked past the children as if they were not the point, and fixed on Bruce as if the class had been staged to insult him. "If this is real fighting," he said, voice rolling over the room, "show them something that hurts." The children froze. One boy's hands dropped without him noticing. A girl's chin trembled as she swallowed. The smallest of them shifted toward the wall, shoulders folding inward, waiting for the room to become unsafe. Near the benches, a couple of older students, men who trained in the evening, exchanged a glance that contained history. A parent tightened a grip on a water bottle until it creaked. They knew the boxer's reputation, not just strong, but careless with strength when pride was involved. Bruce didn't answer right away. He held a short pause that was not hesitation. It was measurement. He watched the boxer's stance, the set of the jaw, the way his eyes searched for witnesses more than opponents. Bruce heard the words, but he listened to the intent beneath them. This wasn't a challenge to skill. It was an attempt to redefine the room, turn a place meant for safety into a stage where violence was proof of authority. Bruce's gaze moved briefly to the children, then back to the boxer. His face stayed calm, but something in his posture settled, as if he'd quietly decided what this space would remain. The thud of punches next door kept going, muffled and steady. Inside this room, the air went tight, and everyone could feel it. Whatever happened next would teach the children far more than a punch. Bruce hadn't built this class to make kids hard. He'd built it to make them steady. No trophies on the wall, no talk of street fights. The drills were simple: balance, distance, breath, because children learn truth faster than they learn technique. Control first, power later, and only if they could carry it without turning it into cruelty. He worked with them on purpose, not because it looked good, because he remembered what it was to be small in a loud world, to feel fear turn hot in the chest, and then leak out as anger. He'd seen the pattern in grown men, too. The ones who demanded pain usually carried their own, and they couldn't stand the idea of anyone mistaking them for weak. He wasn't afraid of the boxer's body. What tightened inside him was responsibility. These kids had walked into this hall believing adults would keep the ground safe under their feet. If he answered with hurt, he would betray the lesson. If he ignored the insult, he would teach them that public humiliation was normal. The boxer took another step forward, invading the mat as if it belonged to him. His voice rose, not from distance, but from appetite. He glanced at the children and smiled when he saw their stiffness. "They'll grow up soft if you keep protecting them," he said. They need to learn the world doesn't care. A couple of the older students shifted, ready to intervene. A parent's mouth opened, then closed. No one wanted to be the first to escalate. Everyone waited for Bruce to either submit or explode. Bruce did neither. He turned to the children first. "Back to the wall," he said, not as a panic order, but as a calm instruction. His hand lifted, guiding them without grabbing. He repositioned them so their bodies weren't trapped between two men, so they could see without being in the line of tension. The room's geometry changed in seconds. The boxer had expected a face-off. Instead, he watched Bruce take ownership of the space. That quiet control stripped the boxer of the performance he'd come for. "What? No show?" The boxer sneered, but the sneer didn't land the way he intended. It hung there, exposed. Bruce faced him again. His tone stayed even. "You came asking for pain," he said. "I'm not giving you that." The boxer's nostrils flared. "Then what are you giving them?" Bruce held the pause, long enough for the kids to feel his steadiness, long enough for the adults to realize he wasn't negotiating from fear. "'Cause," he said, "you'll see the reason." The boxer's grin returned, too fast, too confident, because he thought he'd just been invited to win. The children watched Bruce now, with something added to their trust, expectation. They didn't know what reason would look like, but they felt the shift. And under the boxer's certainty, the balance had already begun to move, without a single strike thrown. The words, "You'll see the reason," left a silence behind them that didn't belong in a gym. Even the bagwork next door felt farther away, as if the walls had thickened. The boxer stepped closer until his shadow reached Bruce's feet. His shoulders were braced high, breath deeper now, the kind that feeds dominance. He rolled his taped fists in slow circles. The wraps creaked faintly, a dry sound like cloth pulled tight over bone. The kids pressed to the wall, their bodies lined up like they'd become part of the building. One boy stared at Bruce's hands, searching for a signal that everything was still under control. A girl's fingers curled into her belt, twisting it until the fabric bunched. Bruce didn't look at the fists. He read the line of the shoulders, the angle of the hips, the stance that wanted to move forward without admitting it. He watched the feet, the boxer's weight living on the front edges, ready to surge, the back heel impatient, lifted a fraction too often. A man who wanted a public win, not a real fight, because a real fight carried risk, and this was about applause. Bruce saw it clearly. Pain wasn't the point. Power was, proof delivered in front of children. He spoke like a man laying down rules in his own house. "No strikes to the head," he said. "Nothing toward the kids. One motion, then we stop." The boxer's mouth bent into a grin. "Afraid?" Bruce's eyes stayed level. "I'm choosing." That answer didn't give the boxer anything to hit. It made him feel managed. Bruce lifted one hand, palm open. "Don't punch," he added. "Just push. Both hands. Right here." He tapped the center of his own chest lightly, as if offering a target that didn't matter. The boxer snorted, but he complied, eager to show force. His arms tensed, shoulders loaded, his feet widened for leverage. He shoved. Bruce moved almost nothing. One foot slid a few inches, not backward, but slightly offline. His torso turned a degree, as if making room for the shove to pass through him. His spine stayed tall. He wasn't resisting the force. He was stepping out of its path. The boxer's push went searching for a wall that wasn't there. His body followed his hands. He overcommitted by a single step, then another half step to catch the momentum. For a moment, his balance belonged to the air, not to him. He stopped with a quick, annoyed hop, eyebrows drawn together. It didn't look dramatic. That was the problem. He blinked, trying to locate what had happened. His strength had been real. So why had it felt like pushing on a door that suddenly opened? A short laugh burst out of him, meant to mock, but it carried a thin edge now. Behind him, one of the older students whispered, "Did you see that?" As if he'd witnessed a card trick that didn't rely on deception. Bruce said nothing. No lecture, no victory lap. He simply watched the boxer's face, waiting for the next choice to form. The kids didn't move, but their fear had changed shape. It was becoming a tension. The boxer shifted his stance again, slower this time, eyes narrowing, not with rage, but with confusion that irritated him more than pain ever could. He wanted his moment back, and he could feel it slipping. The room leaned toward a breaking point, quiet as a held breath. The boxer stopped smiling. For the first time, he stood still enough to listen to his own breathing. Bruce turned him slightly so the children could see the result without being placed inside it. "Sideways," he said, guiding with 2 fingers at the elbow. No shove, no dominance, just placement. The boxer complied, half out of stubbornness, half out of curiosity he wouldn't name. "Put your palm on my chest," Bruce told him. "What?" The word came out rough. "Not a strike," Bruce said. "A marker." The boxer's taped hand pressed to Bruce's sternum. Light from the dusty window fell across their hands, making the wrapped knuckles look pale and the open space between their bodies feel charged. Around the room, there was only breath. Even the older students quieted. The kids' uniforms whispered as someone shifted a foot, then froze again. Bruce set his stance with almost no movement, just a micro-adjustment of the front foot, a subtle corkscrew through the ankle that linked him to the floor. His knees softened, not dropping, just ready. His torso gathered, then relaxed as if he were tightening a belt 1 notch and letting it go. He raised his open hand and placed it on the boxer's solar plexus, flat, calm, without threat. No wind-up, no show. The impulse started in the ground, a small drive from the rear foot, a brief compression through the hips. The torso snapped into alignment and released. His palm moved forward the width of a couple of fingers, so little it hardly registered his motion, yet the force arrived all at once, clean and direct. The boxer's body answered before his mind could. Air shot out of his lungs with a sharp, involuntary sound. His eyes widened, not in pain like a drama, but in surprise at losing the one thing fighters guard most: breath. His shoulders folded, his stomach tightened as if it were bracing against a wave. He took one uneven step back, then another, searching for stability that had vanished. He caught himself against the wall, forearms scraping paint, and stayed there bent forward, trying to pull oxygen back through a throat that wouldn't cooperate. He didn't fall. That was what made it worse. Falling would have been a performance. This was simply the body admitting truth. The children didn't scream. They stared, silent, as if they just watched gravity change. The fear in their faces wasn't terror now. It was awe mixed with a new question. If that's possible, what else is? The boxer lifted his head slowly. His expression had emptied of bravado. No anger, no excuses, just a hard, unsettled understanding. "You could have broken something," he said, voice low, still rough with missing breath. Bruce nodded once. But it wasn't needed. He stepped closer, not to press advantage, but to steady. "Inhale," he said, demonstrating. Slow, again. He waited until the boxer's shoulders dropped and the panic left his eyes. Then Bruce turned his head toward the kids. He didn't give a speech. He gave a sentence that could fit inside them. "Strength isn't wanting to hurt," he said. "It's being able to stop." The boxer moved aside, not defeated. Changed. He didn't look at the children like props anymore. He looked at them like witnesses to something he'd missed his whole life. When class ended, parents gathered bags and tried to speak quietly, as if loud voices might ruin what had happened. The kids filed out in a hush, still carrying the moment in their chests. The boxer remained. He waited until the room was almost empty, then spoke as if the words cost him more than any punch. "Can I come back?" he asked, nearly a whisper. Bruce didn't answer immediately. He held the silence, steady, the same kind as at the beginning, letting the question hang where it belonged. And the hall stayed quiet enough to hear a man learning a new language without saying a single word.